across the sea of life. So much pain, warring divides. It's a shame we don't see how it can be. Oh, we need to smile at each other.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all.
Oh, we need to honor our mother, shelter our sisters, all to existence. God's help will come from above, but first we need the love.
Welcome to another episode of The Y Factor, guys. Today is the 30th of June and we're nearly mid-year. Honestly, this year's passed so quickly.
It's also Rajab, so Ramadan is next month on the Hijri calendar.
That's right, and it was Isra and Mi'raj earlier this week, so a lovely time for Muslims, I guess.
Lots happening and heaps to start preparing for Ramadan. I mean, do you have your social calendar all filled up? How many mosques are you going to visit in the one night?
I think it's beautiful to plan for Ramadan in advance. And I remember I was reading a blog about a sheikh who was like, ladies, it's shopping time. Go shopping now. Go get your Eid presents. Go get everything now. Yeah. So that when Ramadan actually comes up, you're devoting your time to worship and prayers and not planning.
You know, the surprising thing is every single year, I think people do take that advice on board. You go up to the Arabic grocery stores to stock up on your Ramadan needs, your dates and your whatnot, and the place is packed out like it's teeming with
but
people.
The interesting thing is it never stops.
Exactly, it happens every single day. So I thought you did your pre-Ramadan shopping. Oh, I just forgot the rest of the shopping.
Well, I think Ramadan will be very interesting when it comes up. But let's just get started on the news for this week.
The Y Factor.
Our first item for this week is actually about a landmark change. Or I guess it's a landmark change considering which perspective you're looking at. But basically, City of Sydney Council has changed one small word that has made a massive difference, and that word is changing settlement to invasion. So Australia was basically not settled by white settlers, but rather invaded by colonialists.
Wow. I think it's the national narrative is something very, very interesting. I know historians would have a lot to say about this because and as you said, a contentious event can be covered in two ways. But I honestly think, I know this is personal opinion, but good on them. Like, we come here, like with settlement, you have this idea that, you know, we settled peacefully. There was no one resisting. The Aboriginals were here. They resisted. This is their country. We took over and they deserve their rights. And I think when you portray it that way, you know, as an invasion, you realize that there were people's rights here who you usurped as as a part of invasion.
Well, there was a lot of backlash. A lot of people disagreed with that change from the word European arrival to invasion. But the mayor, Clover Moore, has said that, you know, well, actually, it was Mr. Morris, an Indigenous elder, was consulted, and he said that it's the truth and it shouldn't be watered down. And they made reference to the Holocaust and how the Jews insisted on it being acknowledged as a Holocaust, a massive abuse of their rights and oppression and whatnot. And if the Jews got that acknowledgement, then so should the Aborigines, which leads me to think that maybe one day Palestine will also manage to get an official acknowledgement that it's actually occupied, invaded land rather than just annexed or originally Israeli.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was just thinking in my head the way that certain Arabs and Muslims can relate to this decision is exactly how a lot of people say, you know, Israel, you know, like the occupied Palestinian territories. This lingo, the issue of semantics, makes a big difference. When you appreciate something as an invasion, not as a settlement, it's exactly what the Palestinians have been calling for, you know.
Yeah.
These aren't, you know, this is not Israel, it's occupied Palestinian territories. So I think this issue, it's not new in Australia. You know, you had the history wars, the black armband of history, all these things. It's historic, but to actually see it through official policy, I honestly applaud them.
I mean, Australia Day is still going to be Australia Day. It hasn't been changed officially to Invasion Day as the Indigenous people would like it to be. Every year they make a point about that. Yeah. But I think, like, you know, reconciliation, the steps towards it are very tiny. Maybe not seen as enough by many who support Aboriginal rights, but at the same time, they are tiny steps towards the right direction, and hopefully they'll kind of speed up and take larger hops maybe in future.
Well, it's interesting we mentioned this news article because just today leaders of the Chinese Australian community are actually demanding an apology from the federal government because of the racist laws which their forebearers had to actually endure, right? And basically they said that the laws such as expensive head tax and dictation tests imposed on Chinese immigrants just to curb their flow was really racist. And they said it's to get rid of these remnants of white superiority, you need to give us an apology. This call has actually, now I thought it's pretty outlandish, right? But apparently the New Zealand, Canadian and Californian state governments have actually issued formal apologies for Chinese specific discriminatory practices in the past.
Well, too bad K-Rudd is no longer the Prime Minister. He seemed to be pretty good at handing out apologies.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Julia Gillard has slumped massively in the polls.
Yeah.
She's gone even worse than Tony Abbott's ratings at the moment. But this whole Chinese apology thing, it's pretty much, I feel like I'm going through my Australian civics and citizenship history textbook in high school again. But don't you see that history is kind of repeating itself? The same way people tried to limit Asian immigration in the time, now it seems to be more, limiting
asylum seekers.
Middle Eastern asylum seekers.
I don't think it's Middle Eastern per se, because obviously, now with skilled migration, family, like all there's other types of visas.
There's
but I feel like
English requirements, so any migration really.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think in 10 years' time we're going to be looking back at the way we're treating asylum seekers, and think, what the hell were we doing?
Well, maybe they'll be demanding an apology then.
The Y Factor.
It seems that New Zealand is taking some very interesting steps recently. They've actually, tomorrow there will be a nationwide ban on tobacco in jails. So the New Zealand prisoners have actually started smoking nicotine patches and tea leaves before the ban actually comes into effect. And basically all the country's prisons will go completely smoke-free on the 1st of July. And this is a move to make the prisons a safer and healthier place. And this is really interesting because just last month they actually banned lighters in prisons, and they place inmates on nicotine replacement therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's good. I thought banning lighters was just for safety precautions, but if they're doing it out of a health safety thing, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I know Australia was featuring in international news for its move towards plain packaging of cigarettes, which I think up until now wasn't actually even official. Like, they're still gonna make it a legal official move. It's interesting if you walk into any supermarket that actually sells cigarettes, they've got massive life-size posters of the anti-plain packaging lobby groups that are accusing Australia of becoming a police state because of that move.
Who's funding those campaigns? Like,
I think companies.
The problem is with the cigarette debate, like, it kind of, when they clothe it in terms such as, freedom of expression, blah, 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 right? You forget at the end of the day the horrendous amount of lives that cigarettes and smoking cigarettes takes. It becomes a human tragedy. And what you're going to defend, for example, if it was like they were, if it was anything else, they won't defend it when they know the casualties. It's like, imagine someone, the fast food chains coming out and stopping healthy food campaigns because it's freedom of expression. When something comes out and affects such a majority of the population, it's basically like, it's just disgusting.
Well, no, you know what? The healthy food thing probably was attacked originally, limiting what we can and can't eat. Now it's the cigarettes, and in future, hopefully, might even be, a bigger crackdown on alcohol abuse.
Well, alcohol, as we said, Western Australia is trying to go, it's the first dry state, and they're passing laws and stuff. And I think they just realised, like, with these social ills, obviously they're legal on the premise that each rational individual as a citizen has a right to determine for themselves their consumption and their limits. But when it becomes social trends and it leads to like binge drinking
they say it themselves that it's a culture thing, and that's why it's really hard to wipe it out. Australian culture is synonymous with, I don't know, having a drink at the pub after work or whatever. But the thing is, it leads to such harmful effects afterwards, and if it's getting out of control, maybe the government should
step in. It's small steps. I remember one of my uni lecturers was saying, she's a pharmacist, and she was saying in the 90s, the pharmacists used to actually smoke in the pharmacy and behind the dispenser, right? Put the cigarette down while they're serving the customers and pick up the cigarette again after. And that was like 10, 15 years ago. You would have never imagined that now, like...
All of this stuff is relatively
That's
new.
right. So, it's small steps and we'll see how it goes.
The Y Factor.
Miran, did you happen to watch the SBS's program Go Back to Where You Came From?
I squeezed it in between my exams, but yes, I did. It was certainly something not to miss. If you haven't watched it, it's up on the SBS website, and I would highly recommend that you do go and catch up.
And apparently SBS's ratings have gone through the roof because of the program.
I think some people might have never turned on the SBS channel in their lives, but that was definitely a hit.
I think it was just interesting that finally something came out to bring the humanity of asylum seekers to the fore.
I really felt that was the entire point of the program. Like, for those who haven't watched it, basically they took a bunch of people who were very, very anti-refugees coming to Australia, literally go back to where you came from, that's where the title comes, and they took them, placed them first with resettled refugees, so refugees who got accepted and are living in Australia, and they took them backwards from there to, they did a trip to Villawood Detention Centre, and then they took them to Malaysia, where people usually catch their boats to Australia. And then from Malaysia, they went to the actual refugee camps they took them to Jordan and Kenya, I believe, and then they actually took them into Iraq and the countries of origin. So every time they take a step in, backwards and actually meet the people, the participants in the show would say that, I wouldn't want to see it happen to these people that we've gotten to know. So I think it was the fact that they saw them as human beings that sort of helped them.
When you put a face to the misery, like it's really hard. Wow.
Mind you, some people still came out of it, being anti-refugee. They just changed the word from queue jumpers to, I can't remember what the term that the guy tried to use.
Well, I think the feedback has been on the whole positive, but Paul Sheehan had an article in SMH saying, blah, just go read it, it's a load of junk. But I think it's just really interesting with these refugees, and we did speak in our asylum seekers episode about the plight of these people.
Well, we're biased because we are, you and I, Tasnim, we're in support of refugee rights. But a lot of people out there genuinely do not want them here, and I think that show has done a lot to show a different side of it. So if you are anti-refugee, and, there are people in our community who are anti-asylum seekers coming to Australia, it's not just, the regular mainstream Australian community, I would say have a look at the show. And there were a few genuinely, you could say, you can kind of see where they're coming from with their arguments, but by the end of the trip, us just sitting in our living rooms at home watching the television, you'd hope that we sort of changed and come to appreciate, like the guy was saying, that even if you don't want them here, you can at least understand that it's a complex issue. It's not just like, you shouldn't be here, so go home. But there's a lot more situations attached to the whole thing.
Just that complex issue, but why, I think the news coverage of exactly why these refugees, so for example, the highest quota in the detention centres at the moment are from Iraq, Afghanistan and Sri Lanka, right? Iraq and Afghanistan, we know why, because of the war, but Sri Lanka we never got to mention.
Yeah, there was actually an article about that in New Matilda this week, and it was saying that Australia, and in particular Kevin Rudd as our foreign minister, has been very silent about revelations on violence at the end of the Sri Lankan civil war, and there was a suggestion that the reason for that is because a lot of Sri Lankan people escaping from that war came as asylum seekers to Australia. Now, because Australia is not really keen on accepting a lot of asylum seekers, it's suggested that perhaps that's a reason they haven't focused on the violence in Sri Lanka. With Iraq and Afghanistan, there kind of really wasn't an option because Australian troops are there.
Directly involved. That's
exactly.
Right.
But
right.
With Sri Lanka, that was sort of like they put it aside and pretended nothing happened. I don't know. It's
You know what, our listeners out there, let us know your thoughts on either side of the fence. As we said, we did make it clear we're obviously very pro refugee rights.
But or you might be in support of Paul Sheehan's statement, which is that the media just tries to manipulate our feelings and make us feel sorry for refugees when they don't deserve it.
That's right. Let us know your thoughts on our Facebook page. And as we said, healthy discussion is always welcome.
The Y Factor.
Mira, did you know that the Australian dollar has hit its highest against the UK pound since 1985? So in 26 years, we've never had a higher dollar rate.
No, I didn't, but that might explain why Maya is going to up its sales by putting Botox into its department stores. So if you want to get Botox, you can just go straight to Maya and say, I want a treatment injection right here.
Like on the counter?
You know how they have their in-store kind of beauty department thingos? You can just go to them and ask for a Botox injection.
Wow.
I don't think it started yet exactly, but it's going to be provided by an external company, and it'll be about $550 for a series of 5 injections, and they can do it in half an hour.
Is
Not
that a
that we need
reflection of how vain our society has become?
Perhaps. But apparently Maya's like really it sort of sank in its share prices to an all-time low, which is interesting considering we just said that the Aussie dollar went up. So
Well, obviously with the global financial crisis, people don't have that much money to spend, I guess.
if you're in Greece, maybe.
The Y Factor.
To our youth out there, we always get pounded on how crappy our generation is. And a study by the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development actually ranked Australian 15-year-olds equal second with New Zealanders in terms of digital skills and digital literacy. And we actually came just behind Korea. So Korea was first, us and New Zealand was second. And that's so interesting because, you know, apparently we're like very tech savvy, and the Minister Peter Garrett was like over the moon, and yeah, it was so cool.
Because our aim in life is just to keep Peter Garrett happy.
No, but, you know, it's Aussie students, especially 15-year-olds that do listen to our show, high five, you guys made a statistic.
The Y Factor.
Now, as usual, our Islamic practices are once again in the limelight of the media. One piece being that a Daily Telegraph reporter, Clementine Cuneo, has actually dressed up in a niqab, walked around through Lakemba to see how she'll be gauged before niqab and then after niqab, and then she took the train down to Wharnsby and walked around in niqab to see what the reactions would be there. Interestingly, she records the reactions to be school kids were laughing and jeering at her. Some woman yelled out at her and said, "Oh, I saw a ghost," and started making like eerie, ghosty kind of noises in the background. And then this elderly woman sort of came to her defense and started yelling at them and said, "Hey, you leave that Muslim woman alone. We're very multicultural here in Hornsby."
Maybe she knew she was being like recorded or something.
You just got to love the way the article is structured. It starts off by going on about how Lakemba is, you know, everyone was looking down on her or looking at her weirdly because she was blonde and blue-eyed until she put on the niqab. But when she went to Hornsby, she found a defender to, you know, save her honour because they're so tolerant in Hornsby.
Right. Well, that's
There's another
interesting.
issue, Tasnim, that you have.
Well, definitely with the Islamic practices in Australia, you've all obviously been seeing the simmering debate in relation to halal meat. Usually what they require is animals to be stunned before killing. Now, RSPCA has come out and said that's really inhumane because the animals like suffer when they're killed without being stunned. And the Australian government actually had permits for like a couple of halal and kosher abattoirs to actually slaughter without stunning, but now that's under review and they want all animals to be killed by stunning first.
Just
now,
to clarify, kosher is the Jewish version of halal.
That's right. Now, in Netherlands, Dutch lawmakers have actually, who used to previously allow animals that are specifically for kosher and halal purposes to be not to be stunned, are actually changing this law, and they've actually come out and said unless quote unquote independent proof is given that the animals will suffer less without stunning, then this law is going to go ahead and you need to stun the animal first and then kill it.
This is pretty worrying because if they put in that whole stunning thing, that's not an Islamic way of slaughtering, right? Doesn't it become sort of not halal meat if you have to do that?
Well, that's interesting because obviously we're not religious authorities and we really need to, basically what it is, Islamically, you need the animal to be conscious, right?
Yeah.
So with the cow, some scholars have said it's okay for them to be stunned because by the time the stunning takes place and because they have such big bodies, by the time you stun them and then you slaughter them, they're not unconscious yet. Right. But with chickens, it's different. Now, it's interesting because apparently a lot of the halal, quote-unquote halal abattoirs around Sydney do the stunning and then do the killing, and there's only a handful that actually slaughter without the stunning. So I think on the show we should definitely get a sheikh or something to let us know more about this issue.
Yeah, because, especially with Eid coming up and all the, you know, sort of slaughtering of the sheep and
that's right. Or not even that, you know how Australia like exports to a lot of Middle Eastern countries,
especially at the time of Eid.
At the time of Eid, and just generally, like we have a really good meat and, you know, poultry trade
industry,
going. Yeah. So I wonder how the government of those countries accepts this stunning issue. I think if anyone out there has more information on this, let us know on the Facebook page because it's something definitely that affects each and every one of us.
On the face of it, I think you could just imagine that if it was found to be un-Islamic, then all of those countries would probably stop taking in their meat products from
Again,
Australia.
it's a difference of an opinion. And
Yeah.
it honestly comes down to the madhab issue too.
We'll definitely
with the
have to have an
stunning, but
episode
yeah.
on that, inshallah.
The Y Factor.
Now, I remember my dad has always had this thing about how, like, some aspects of Australian law is just really stupid, because if a burglar comes to your house, you have to just, this is my dad, you have to sit there and not do anything, let him steal everything, and then you go, bye, Allah Mak, okay? Now, it's really interesting because, you know, this complacency of not to harm or anything. Now, in UK, apparently an individual who actually stabs a burglar, like stabs, like
Yeah.
with a knife or whatever, while defending themselves or their property, will not actually face criminal persecution anymore. The British Justice Minister Kenneth Clarke actually came out, and in a BBC interview he said, if an old lady finds herself in the kitchen, an 18-year-old burglar comes in, she picks up the kitchen knife, and sticks it in him, she has not committed a criminal offence.
Wait, let me get this straight. So the burglar's the one who does the stabbing? Or
No. Someone's coming to your house or your property and they're going to steal it.
Yeah.
And as an act of self-defense, you stab them.
You stab them.
It's okay.
It's okay?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Whereas in Australia, we get sued for when your robber falls down the stairs or something.
That's right. No, that's occupier's liability. Like, you're supposed to take
Let's
care
not
of
get
them.
into the legalese of all this, but okay. That's an interesting new ruling. Oh, in America, there's another court case that we're looking at. There's this... Actually, sorry, it's not in America, it's in the UK. A couple named Nigel and Penny Ward used a grocery coupon 63 times out of the same British supermarket, and they conned them out of 1,600 Australian dollars worth of
Wow.
groceries.
Because of the coupon?
Because of the coupon, yeah.
Oh, wow.
They're both in their 40s, and apparently they carried out the fraud by using self-service counters like they have in Big W.
Are we giving our audience ideas? I have a feeling these people might be Mohamed's cousins. Mohamed, admit if they are.
Well, they're in court at the moment. They have sentencing next month. So maybe when they get sentenced, we'll find out what the exact ruling is, and we'll see what ends up happening after that. Copycat cases, or, you know, a crackdown on self-service
We'll
counters.
hope not. Disclaimer, that is still haram. You're still, defrauding the system, not allowed.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of the news segment. Stick around. After this song break, we're going to be talking to a Palestinian rights activist, and then after that, inshallah, we'll be going into our events. So stay listening. You're with Tasnim and Miran on the Y Factor on 87.6 FM.
Creation, the rhythm of the clapping of the thunder and the rain. Can you see the rhythm of Allah's creation? The lightning and the leaves and the seasons as they change. Watch the children in the field spinning round and round. Watch their lanky, dizzy, silly falls upon the ground. They grip on to long grass, afraid of spinning with the sun. Reality deceives them neath a smiling mask of fun. Can you hear the rhythm of Allah's creation? The rhythm of the children aging brown hair into grey. Can you see the rhythm of Allah's creation? Alternation of the moon and stars passing into day. Watch the grown-ups all twirling with the clock throughout the day. Watch them spinning through the hours while the time hands tick away. They talk and grip the world as they would catch a falling knife. Reality deceives them neath the musing games of life. Can you hear the rhythm of Allah's creation? The storm against the sand and the pulsating waves. Can you see the rhythm of Allah's creation? The rhythm of the children running wind upon the graves. The rhythm of our world beats in surrender to Allah. Our blood and our breathing testify. The rhythm of surrender is a part of who we are, with each heartbeat and involuntary blink of our eye. A part of us we can't deny. Can you hear the rhythm of Allah's creation? The storm against the sand and the pulsating waves. Can you see the rhythm of Allah's creation? The rhythm of the children running wind upon the graves.
Welcome back to the Y Factor, listeners. Mohamed's just jumped in for the rest of the segment. Welcome to the show, Mohamed.
Thank you, Miran.
And we've also got our guest of honour today is Jennine AbdelKhalek, the founder of Students for Justice in Palestine, which is a student group in UTS, the University of Technology, Sydney. Welcome to the show, Jennine.
Thank you. Hi, Miran.
Hi. So tell us a little bit about why you started up this student group in the first place.
Well, I've always been passionate about the Palestinian struggle and the Palestinian cause, mostly due to my Palestinian background. And I started uni, and there was another Palestinian bloke in one of my tutes. We got talking, and we felt that there was, a Palestinian rights group missing from uni, and we really wanted to get, kickstart something, especially with the, global boycott, divestment and sanctions campaign, that Palestinian civil society has called for. A lot of student movements and groups have jumped on board, in Europe and the US, and we felt that, there was no pulse in Australia or, to be more specific in Sydney. So,
and to better clarify that for our listeners, we're referring to the BDS, which Marrickville Council had wanted to adopt, but it didn't pass through?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you started up this group, are you trying to promote BDS, or what is it exactly that you're pushing?
Well, we're trying to, create awareness, I guess, raise awareness about, the occupation, the illegal military occupation, the apartheid system imposed on Palestinians, and BDS as well.
So, Jennine, can you tell us a little bit about what you guys do at uni? As in what activities you partake in?
Within Students for Justice.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's only really started. I mean, it was a concept that began to grow at the beginning of the year. So we thought, first things first is to probably, create an event and start campaigning, doing a BDS campaign. So we've had 2 protests already against Max Brenner. And the reason for that is because Max Brenner openly supports and funds the Israeli military. And, the Israeli military is responsible for human rights violations and war crimes against the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. They perpetuate the illegal military occupation of Palestine. This is all part of, BDS and, to be more specific, the consumer boycott aspect of BDS.
Right, so would you be planning to do that for every sort of vendor or product that supports Israel, or is it just because Max Brenner is perhaps so popular and... among the youth?
Yeah, well, Max Brenner is 100% owned by an Israeli company, so it's, completely Israeli, and the parent company is called the Strauss Group. So we do want to target that. We don't want to, normalize Israel and, its businesses and whatnot. We're trying to emulate the anti-apartheid movement during, South Africa under apartheid. Right. And so, this is, non-violent, peaceful resistance, and, it worked for South Africa. Mm-hmm. And, we really do hope that, we can, make it gain some kind of momentum here.
And it must be a tough gig, like you said, but it's good. It's reassuring to have, for example, as you mentioned in South Africa, if that work there's a model you can emulate. At the same time, you must have faced a lot of opposition, right, to this resistance. I mean, from counter-protests and Israeli lobby groups, is that correct?
Yeah, actually, we have, a lot of people actually have opposed us. At our second protest against Max Brenner in Parramatta, a counter-protest was held. And there were people standing within Max Brenner, Israel supporters, carrying, Israeli flags, chanting, long live Israel and whatnot. And between, us, the protesters, and, the Israel supporters standing inside Max Brenner, barrier of police, even on the Facebook event page, people comment with the most ludicrous things and propagating Zionist myths, Palestinians, have... a lot of rights, Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East and whatnot. And also, AUJUS, the Australasian Union of Jewish Students.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Basically, they organised a counter-protest, and it was up on their website, and, one of my friends came across it, linked me to it, and they actually had a little brochure thingy, And their counter-protest was to invite as many people as possible and shout people free drinks. Shout people drinks.
That's a definite way to bring people down.
While we're
A lot of money to spend.
Yeah, exactly.
Who says no to free drinks?
You know, buying people's support. You know what I mean? So.
But okay, so they knew about your protest in advance. Was this because of the first protest that you'd held?
Yeah, they knew about it in advance because of the first protest and also because it's up on Facebook as a public event.
Right. But that must mean it's gained a lot of publicity if it's gotten around to the extent of people actually gathering and organising a counter-protest.
Yeah, it definitely has. And it also, you know, our protest also got a mention in state parliament by...
Nice.
Unfortunately, it's not very nice for us because the man actually encouraged people to go to Max Brenner. He just, you know, had a bit of a whinge about BDS. So...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, negative publicity is still publicity.
It's still publicity.
Got you on the map in Parliament.
Yeah, exactly. So
have you guys been protesting outside Max Brenner Parramatta, or have you been spreading across the different Max Brenners?
Well, a lot of people have asked us that, and they're like, you know, why not go to, you know, Parramatta, and, Max Brenner in Newtown or in Broadway and whatnot. Yeah. I guess Parramatta is a very central place. Mm-hmm. You know, it's close to the station, and a lot of people find it easier to come down.
Second largest city in New South Wales.
Yeah,
as well.
you know, it's basically the second CBD of, you know,
right.
Sydney. So, but definitely, I mean, the other Max Brenners are on the map. Mm-hmm. And we do want to do something about it. You know, this isn't about a particular franchise. Mm-hmm. You know, this is about Max Brenner as a whole, and, you know, the Strauss Group and, you know, its complicity.
And I'll remind our listeners that Jennine is a first-year university student, so it's quite a front to, I guess, take up arms against...
In your first year, juggling
Absolutely.
First semester and taking on the world.
I recall my first year, I didn't know how to get to my first class, let alone start a civil rights group. But no, we commend you on
That
that.
was back in your day, Mohamed. I think things have progressed.
Wasn't that long ago.
Well, Jennine, would you have plans to spread to any other sort of retailers other than Max Brenner?
I'm not sure if you've probably heard about the Dead Sea minerals that...
Yes.
Yeah, so basically there are several... I guess some Israeli businesses like, you know, Ahava, Jericho, Black Pearl and whatnot that advertise their products as made in Israel. Yeah. When in fact, you know, those Dead Sea minerals are from, you know, occupied Palestine, you know, the West Bank. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, this is an exploitation of, you know, Palestinian land. And they're obviously, you know, bringing in, you know, the dough from, you know, this Palestinian resource. So, yeah, it is something...
I personally know there's been a lot of clashes between those people selling the Dead Sea minerals in Westfields, various Westfields and malls, basically. Along with Muslim people, they sort of approach them, and then there's been a few times where the Muslims have argued with them and said, no, this doesn't belong to you guys. It's Palestinian or Jordanian. You know, the Dead Sea has nothing to do with Israel. And there's been some interesting arguments that have gone down in public, but they're still there. They're still standing and selling their stuff. So
yeah, well, me and my friends have taken it upon us to call out Free Palestine whenever we walk past and slow down on purpose just so they can strike up conversation. So I have been in several, you know, little...
tiffs.
Yes, yeah, with them. And, you know, it's kind of been, you know, tug of war. You know, you mean Palestine? No, Israel. I'm pretty sure it's Palestine. So, yeah, we've had a bit of that.
Just quickly, before you go, what would you say to someone who holds the view that a protest is futile? I mean, what are the results that you've achieved feasibly? Is this more of a personal pursuit of yours to, as you said at the start, create awareness about an issue that doesn't get much awareness in media coverage and what have you?
Yeah, well, a lot of people have said that, you know, what's the point in protesting, you know, what are you going to get out of it? We definitely have created, you know, a lot of awareness. It's gotten media coverage and, you know, we've been asked to speak at, you know, other radio stations as well. Our videos on YouTube have gotten, you know, several thousand views, and even from the Facebook event itself, when people read it, we've gotten comments like, oh, you know, I had no idea. You know, you have to get out there. You know, you need to go onto the streets and you need to, you know, stamp your feet and just, you know, say, you know, look at us. You know, we only hear, you know, the Zionist narrative. That we don't hear the Palestinian side. And, you know, Max Brenner also took down, because it's got a statement that it openly supports, you know, the Israeli military, more specifically the Golani and Givati brigades, which are, you know, the worst of the worst. And they've taken their statement down from their English website. to prevent people from finding out and, subsequently, boycotting. So people are really unaware. They have absolutely no idea. And so we're putting it back out there and we're saying, well, Max Brenner is, involved in this and, we want people to know. And it's not a futile thing. If everyone's going to say protest or boycotting doesn't make a difference, then we're not really going to get anywhere. You have to just get into it.
What about those concerned with the dangers? I mean, I heard there were a few arrests at the last protest, and there was a situation where Westfields wasn't allowing the protesters to actually go inside, park their cars or use the stores inside.
Our protests are obviously, peaceful. We're only there to chant and, film what's happening, take photos, because obviously later, we utilise, social media to the best of our advantage and get the word out there. The thing is, during our last protest, the riot squads were there and, it was really intense and, at protests people get kind of, I guess...
Out of control?
Out of control, yeah. And, the police were being, a bit obnoxious and so were some people. We don't want that, you know what I mean? It doesn't reflect well onto our cause for, people to be silly or, and the police are also, kind of were stirring the pot a bit. So it got out of hand. It wasn't dangerous. We're hoping that doesn't happen.
Maybe a bit of a prep talk before the next protest or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I don't think it was violence that was the problem, it was more sort of swearing, wasn't it?
Oh, no. Well, afterwards, when we had finished, I guess, protesting and we went to go congregate near the ticket gates to, disperse everybody, the police were actually getting a bit annoyed and they were like, it's time for you to leave, that's it, enough is enough, whatnot. And we were saying, okay, we're just, going to say one or two speeches, wrap it up and get everybody to go home. And the police were getting really frustrated. They were like, just get out of here. And we made it clear to them, we filled out a Form 1, we've given them the times, and they didn't like us standing near the ticket gates or whatnot. Well, we weren't actually near the ticket gates, but there's a massive, open area that's part of, City Rail. And so things got out of hand. I mean, it was a blur. It was really sudden. Somebody was pushed to the floor and, police officers pulled out their batons and whatnot. And one guy actually swore at the police because they were holding him against the wall and, people just scrambling to help the others. And It was really intense. So.
Sorry, hopefully that doesn't happen again in future protests.
Thanks a lot, Jennine, for the interview today. If anyone wants to know anything else about the actual group, where can they go to? Well,
we do have a Facebook page, and that's called Students for Justice in Palestine, UTS. So if you look us up, we keep everybody updated about events that we're up.
Cool. We wish you all the best in your future endeavours and hope this grows in its resistance and its movement. It's just finally, before we go, anything else just to finish off that you'd like to let our listeners know?
I'd like to say that I feel that it's a bit of a trap and a misconception to label the Zionist occupation of Palestine, a religious conflict, a religious struggle, because it isn't at all. It's about, imperialism and, the colonization of a land, expropriating land and annexing Palestinian land and driving people out of their homes. The Zionist project is not a Jewish project. We really want to make that clear. This is, it's about Palestinian human rights, and, our focus is on, equality, freedom and justice for all. And our, aim, as part of, jumping on the BDS bandwagon is to, pressure Israel to comply with its international obligations. And I guess that's the purpose of BDS, and that's our purpose as well as a student movement that's growing momentum in Sydney.
Jennine AbdelKhalek, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Come on, please train.
Oh, I've been happy lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be something good has begun. Oh, I've been smiling lately, dreaming about the world as one, and I believe it could be Someday it's going to come. Someday it's going to come. Come take me home again. Ooh, come on, peace train. Yeah, someday it's going to come. Come on, peace train. Ooh, come take me home again. Oh, peace train sounding loud, glad on the peace train. Ooh, come on, peace train. Isekaya, 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 Isekaya. 'Cause out on the edge of darkness, there rides a peace train. Oh, peace train, take this country, come take us home again. Oh, I've been smiling lately, dreaming about the world as one, and I believe it could be. Someday it's going to come. Someday it's going to come. Come take me home again. Ooh, come on, peace train. Yeah, someday it's going to come. Come on, peace train. Ooh, come take me home again. Someday.
Welcome back from the break. We have with us a special guest today by the name of Zain. Zain is on the organising committee of the up-and-coming Careers Expo, which will be this Saturday, and we'll hear a bit more about that later. Firstly, Zain, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mohamed. Thank you, Miran.
So we wanted to ask you, at what point exactly should people start looking into thinking of where their career should be headed, what to choose, and so on?
Firstly, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. From my humble experiences, I know there are different theories globally as to what point people should start thinking about their long-term career. As we know here in Australia, you really don't choose, I suppose, some sort of direction until you're in year 11 or year 12, because you start, I suppose, building a platform based on the subjects that you choose, and then from there, that'll dictate sometimes what university degree you will attempt to acquire, and then from there, that'll dictate, of course, your career. And then even after that, there's a high, or I suppose a low retention of people staying or being employed in the same degree they acquire. So they move, say, from one career to another, even after they finish the degree. In other places around the world, there is a theory or a way of thinking where people should specialize even at a younger age. So even at the ages of, say, 11 or 12, they should start thinking to themselves, I want to become a mechanic, and start gearing their education and their life towards that, becoming the best mechanic or scientist or an engineer and so forth. So they'll start dictating quite early. I personally think from a young age, people should leave their options open. Okay, it's hard to identify a particular career at a young age, and most people should explore. It's hard to tell whether you're more suited to become an engineer or a lawyer or a sheikh or a driver or a mechanic and so forth at a young age. So, but what they should be doing at a young age, even up until year 12, even up until part of university, is developing the generic skills that will support them in any career they choose. So the skills of learning how to communicate with others, learning how to manage an event, learning how to answer a mathematical calculation, learning how to put a story together, learning how to influence people, learning how to provide criticism to others and receive criticism from others, learning how to make friends, learning how to say, hi, my name's Maz, and how are you, when you meet someone at an event that you think is important. And so for all these generic skills that people one day use in their careers, learning how to come up with ideas, being creative, etc., I definitely believe people should develop as much exposure to these skills and also as much exposure to different careers. I have 4 girls. The oldest two, one's 7 years old and one's 6 years old. And what I'm planning to do with that is getting them to start managing small projects at their school. So the idea is that we're teaming up with a couple of other Muslim parents. They go to a school with predominantly non-Muslims in non-Muslim area. So they'll be planning a culture night or a Eid night. So we're looking at having, say, an Islamic awareness day or a culture night or Eid celebration. So I sat with my daughters and asked them to manage this event. So learning the skills of coming up with ideas, learning the skills of brainstorming, learning the skills of managing an event, inviting people,
exposing them at a young age,
etc. All these skills. So they'll develop all these type of skills And eventually one day they'll, if they attend some of these careers expos or speak to experts in particular fields, then they'll develop a love. They say, you know what, I actually think I'd love to do, I love the idea of medicine, or I love the idea of engineering, or I love the idea of becoming a Hafiz in the Quran, and so forth.
Going off what you said about the generic skills, I was given a good analogy in high school. My teacher said, don't think of your career as set in stone. Don't think of it as in amazing the engineer is, for example, concrete, but rather think of yourself as wet cement, so you can adapt and mold to the conditions. What do you think about that?
Well, to a very large degree, that is correct. It is ideal to have the extremely high levels of generic skills, and we know this from our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who's a very balanced individual, who had fantastic skills in dealing with people, in leading people, in taking advice from people. Sometimes when things were not wahi, that he would take advice from the Sahaba on certain things. So these are skills you can apply. That think laterally, think horizontally, think vertically. Learn how to make new friends, learn how to criticize others, learn how to tell people what is right. And so all these actually skills that people need, alhamdulillah. So definitely these generic skills, you're absolutely correct in that area. But at the same time, there is also, subhanAllah, there are people that are made for particular areas. We know this from our stories of the Prophet as well. There are sometimes that there are people that are made as leaders, so to speak, okay, or how can I wouldn't say made, but the ideal position would be as leaders, others as followers, others as engineers, others as cooks, others as drivers, and so forth. So again, it's a balance of both, but I don't think there's any question as to that we should, as Muslims, try to develop as many generic skills as possible at the highest level as well. And these skills can be applied in any facet, any discipline.
It sounds as though from all of these generic skills that you're referring to, people skills certainly top the list, and in that case perhaps the actual sense of socializing or dealing with people at university or TAFE or wherever else people are studying. So in that sense, do you think that actually attending a tertiary institution is perhaps better than distance education or other options that are out there?
I'm personally a big fan of good character, so I always advocate people skills. Before I get to the second part of the question, there's no doubt about technical skills. So someone who can navigate through, the information super high, someone who can navigate through the internet, and someone's got research skills, someone who's got some technical skills, so knows how to document information, someone who knows how to change a light bulb, so to speak, someone who knows how to put batteries into a car, change a wheel, and so forth, possibly even design something. Etc. So office skills, Microsoft Office skills, etc. So there are generic skills that come in a technical fashion as well. Somebody who can solve a situation where if they ran out of water, for example, in the desert, how can they where can they get water? And there are some bush skills, so to speak. So a lot of technical skills that people should acquire just to be able to navigate through life, of course. Now, do I advise of face to face? Rather than distance, again, I think I do, alhamdulillah, but depending on people's situation, there is a benefit in both, of course. But again, if someone lives remotely, is a stay-at-home mother, is some sort of difficulty in health-wise and so forth, then of course distance education can work well. But ideally, people's skills is something I always advocate. And
most of our listeners are either high school students or university or TAFE students, and they, for example, even in their studies, are not too sure where the direction is headed. So how important is consulting the experts in the fields, the older mentors in the community about this sort of problem?
Okay. That's a fantastic question or statement, Mohamed, because I'm a big critic of the young Muslim people who have forgotten a fantastic principle in Islam, and that is the principle of shura. Okay, in fact, there's a whole surah, a whole verse, a whole chapter in the Quran about shura. Shura means consultation, asking people of knowledge, asking people that have been there, done that, and so forth. Always to the point where at times I feel like, and I might still do this, inshallah, so I'm giving you guys a little secret, I might actually develop a lecture and call the lecture The Arrogance of the Young.
Oh, okay. That's harsh.
Yeah, it's a bit of a swipe.
We might not give that a mention on the Y factor.
Okay. It's a bit harsh, but what's happened sometimes a lot of young people, alhamdulillah, because Allah subhanahu has given them health and they have options. We live in a day and age where in a Western civilization where there's so many options. It's a day of choice really, from what work you engage, to what university degree, to what school, to what food, to what restaurant, to what car, and so forth. So there's a lot of choice. So people are not obliged to seek. I'm not sure is it a humility thing, but to seek people's advice. But we know this is a discipline. This is a principle from the Shura, from the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to engage in Shura, to ask people, ask people of knowledge, ask experts, ask people who have done that before. And essentially, what you're doing is you're cutting out time. So there's a saying that says the wise person is the one that doesn't. The wise person is the one that learns from other people's mistakes, because you're never going to make the same mistake on your own. Sorry, you're never going to make the same mistake always, so to speak. So the idea is to ask people who have made this mistakes, who have fallen into traps and so forth, and learn from them. And essentially, you'll save your time making that mistake, and you can save yourself weeks, months, or years from learning from other people's experience. So back to the richer point, I totally agree, is that for youth, like high school students, university students, definitely go out there and ask people in different professions, find out about medicine, find out about law, find out about engineering, etc., before you actually commit yourself to anything and make that mistake.
And they can do that this Saturday at the Careers Expo?
Absolutely. And this is something I advise every single listener out there today, to be there at the Careers Expo, because whether you get 2% benefit or 100% benefit, inshallah, you will get some benefit from this, because you'll see professionals there. You'll acquire a lot of benefits. So you get a free resume. You'll check your current resume if you have bring it with you on the day. A few giveaways, some exciting giveaways. Young students will also have mock interview trials with expert HR managers. So you'll feel you simulate the actual environment in a HR interview. So I know we were there last year. I got some family and friends who were there last year. They were absolutely fantastic. So I really advise that everyone gets out there this Saturday at Auburn Town Hall. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the MSA Careers Expo.
And there's a lot of incentive to actually go there, right?
Absolutely. All the freebies. If there is a website,
we all love our freebies.
Absolutely. careerexpo.org.au. I really recommend everyone go out there, and as they say on some of the commercials, can you play a commercial? You'll be nuts if you're not there. If you don't go.
All right, so that's this Saturday from 10 to 2 p.m. Auburn Town Hall. And is there parking around there as well?
There is plenty of parking right next door. It's that sort of precedent where there's the Auburn Police, Auburn Council, Auburn Library, Auburn Town all together, and there is some parking out there. So everybody between the ages of, say, 14, 15, all the way to 30 or so, it's really targeted at you. Okay. Even if you're set in a particular career, you'll speak to some experts, and you may even consider a career change.
Inshallah.
Fantastic insight. Jazakallah khairan for your time today, Mazin.
Wa yakum, not a problem. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داع أيها المبعوث فينا جئت بالأمر المطاع جئت شرفت المدينة مرحبا يا خير داع. His eyes slowly rising, sunrise warms the horizon, sand dunes form in the distance, he's up and out in an instant. The crowd, they all were waiting, watching and anticipating. A man appears from afar. Could it be the one sent by Allah? He shouts, here comes the prophet. His face is a light that drives out the darkness. Words are alive, his message is living. Joy everywhere, our voices are singing. طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع.
Welcome back to the break, guys. I'm here now for the event section.
Hello, Tasnim. Okay, we're covering this week's events, inshallah. The first one is Friday, the 1st of July. So that's at 6:30 p.m. and it's a dinner organised by Yusuf Ishaa College. It's called A Night in Medina, and it's going to be held in the Grand Ballroom of the Emporium, Level 1, 258 South Terrace, Bankstown. You need to give a call to 9759 6222 or 0420 902 928 for more information. It's a sisters only event, and there'll be heaps of experiences that are Medina-like. There'll be trivia, prizes, auction fun, and it'll be an informative and exciting evening.
Medina-like, I like that word. All right, our next event is actually a regular weekly event organised by the Olive Tree Women's Network in partnership with Auburn Junior District Soccer Club. Now, they invite you to go on a WIM walk in which women and girls from all backgrounds and, walks of life walk together at Progress Park in Auburn, which is the corner of Chisholm and Wellington Roads, Auburn. Every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. You need to bring your walking shoes, a bottle of water and a smile. For more information, contact Zainab on 0450 060 018. That was 0450 060 018. Or you can email wimwalk@olivetreewm, so Women's Network, .org. So, yep, that's a Wim Walk.
As we mentioned in the segment before this, there's the Careers Expo in Auburn Town Hall, 10 a.m. on Saturday. Also, the week after, there's going to be a 21st century, Abraham for the 21st Century talk organised by Affinity Intercultural. Affinity, yeah, in collaboration with various other organisations. It's an interfaith event. The question posed is, how can this figure revered in the three traditions speak to us today? We're talking obviously about Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and there'll be a Muslim, a Jewish and a Christian
Reverend
speaking.
Yep.
So that's going to be Sunday the 10th of July from 4 to 7 p.m. at Mary MacKillop Place, Mount Street, North Sydney. You need to register at registrations@affinity.org.au. The cost will be $20 for adults and $10 for students or pensioners, but you need to RSVP by Friday the 1st of July because the seating is limited.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of the news the end of the event segment and the actual end of the episode.
The whole episode
for this week.
altogether, yeah. All right, so don't forget to please provide us with your feedback or any random comments on our Facebook page, The Y Factor Radio Show. And I think last week when the boys were doing the episode, they mentioned a YouTube competition. So if you come across any interesting YouTube videos that you think we should be looking at, please post them on our Facebook wall. We'd be very happy to have a look.
And also, if you're actually partaking or, an organizer of any event, for example, our feature this week, when we did speak to the Palestine
Students for Justice in Palestine.
Yeah, the activists. That was basically someone who emailed us and let us know about the what they're involved in. Yeah. So if you are interested and you want to get coverage for your event or whatever, and it's something that is number one Islamic and affects the youth.
Yep. Within reason.
Yeah, within reason. Let us know, inshallah. And we can have a chat about it.
You might want to pop us an email at yfactor@live.com.au.
Definitely. And this week, I think there's some pressing questions that would be lovely to be discussed on our discussion page about the halal meat, about the
refugee situation.
The refugee situation, yeah. So we'd love to hear from you guys.
All right, and I think that pretty much brings us to the very, very end of today's episode. So from Tasnim and myself, Miran.
And Mohamed in absentee.
We'd like to wish you a very good weekend. And we'll say assalamu alaikum.
When your mother hug your sister, let your wife know that you miss her. Know that you can never give up. When you fall to the floor, I'm the reason you must get up. Love, I'm a blessing from God, so why you don't use me more? It's so odd. You need love, we need love. Love is all we need. Love is all we need. All we need is love. Is all we need. Love is all we need. All we need is love. Is all we need. All we need to smile at each other, reach for your brother, help one another. All we need is love. Smile